Thank you. We're being recorded. It's official. Yeah, we are part of Area 6, District 8. Um, it seems like there's a lot that goes into making this meeting happen. So thank you for putting this together and April and I think it's Brian. And I know I was communicating with Leslie leading up to this. Um, so good job. This is really cool, you guys. Uh, Yeah, it was mentioned our home group is the Love and Service Group, and we are based out of Pleasant Hill, California. Um, we're a three legacy group based on recovery, unity, and service. We're a hybrid home group. We meet twice a week. So we meet on Sundays at 6 p.m. and Thursdays at 7. Both of those meetings are hybrid. So if you guys ever want to, I know it's later for some of you are Central and East Coast, but if you like to stay up late and you want to be sober with us, we'd love to have you. Our Sunday meeting is a 1 hour speaker meeting. And what that looks like is we have what's called a speaker seeker committee. And so I'm part of that committee also. And so we try and find audio recordings of speakers and listen to them and rate them. And if it meets, a certain level rating and the expense isn't ridiculous, then we try and fly people out to our meeting on Sunday nights. And we've had a lot of really cool people from all over the nation. And we've had a couple of people. I know we had a speaker from the Canada area. A lot of us went to international this past year, which was really cool. Um, and also last year we had a speaker that, and this might sound bad, they were from a country that was not the United States, and I don't remember where it was, but it was far. English was not the first language, and they spoke it obviously, and they got to come on and they got to share how AA is reaching, their part of the world. And we have it so good here, in my opinion. Like we have GSO, we have this service structure, we have so much infrastructure to like try and get sober. Um, and it's not like that everywhere. So it was really nice to hear that person share their experience. And, technology is a huge part of like making that possible. So little shout out to our Sunday meeting. If you guys have any or know where I can find any audio recordings of speakers, or if you have one of yourself and you want to come out to California, send it my way. We'd love to have you guys. So I mentioned I invited some home group members and I relate to what April said. Like I have enough tech savviness to be dangerous, but I really am not, it's not my strong suit. Um, Before I was the tech chair of our meeting, which I am today, I was our treasurer and I was way better with money and like Excel. I work in mortgage, so it was like a natural fit. And I don't know if it's like confidence or I took this new commitment and just thought like, oh, it won't be that hard. I'm a millennial. I grew up with technology and the internet and I got this. How hard could it be? And I was wrong. I shouldn't say that. I was surprised at how much I didn't know and how much I had to learn. Um, and that's okay. Like that's all part of the process. And what I know today is, which I've known since I got sober, is like we have a fellowship and there's people that we can ask for help when we don't know how to do something or when we're scared to do something. Um, so far it's been going okay. We changed over our commitments back in October of last year, and I was nicely voluntold that I would be hosting this meeting that same month. And I was, uh, uh, I'm grateful today. It was a lot. I was anxious. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing, and you want me to tell people in a national forum like what I'm doing? Like, I can't. It's too much, you guys. It's too much responsibility. You trust me way too much. I'm just an alcoholic. I don't know how to do that. Um, and that was like fear and everything else talking. And I know how to do most of my job, there are some things that are still going on that I'm still learning and what that looks like. Um, you know, we have a website that I think is posted in the chat in here today. You guys can take a look at that if you'd like, but part of my responsibility is like monitoring that website. And sometimes things break and links don't work or they change, and that needs to be updated. And so one of the responsibilities would be like using a platform called WordPress to update our website and make sure everything's, if we have a link, we want it to go somewhere. So making sure that it does that. Um, so that's one thing. I'll talk a little bit more about what I do as tech chair in our home group, and it'll be kind of high level. The people that I've invited to share with me know way more than I do and helped a lot of them to kind of set up the processes that we use today. So um, you're in great hands. You're just going to get my experience. Uh, so I mentioned our website. We also have we actually have two Gmail email accounts, and one of them is a more like heavier foot traffic. We get it's posted on our website. People can reach out to it. Also on our website, we have a little form. So if you want to become a home group member, you can submit, some brief information. It gets sent to our email. We have home group members with various commitments that need things or need me to update something. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out, and we have a link where that lives on our website. So that needs to get updated each month. So that's some of what I do. We also have what's really cool is our Sunday meeting. We record the speaker with their permission, and we record the audio of their share. And then my job as tech chair, I go back, I can download the recorded share. I drop it into this platform called Audacity. And basically all it is a editing tool so that I can cut out any unneeded, parts. If you start the recording early and there's people talking and it doesn't have to do with the share, I can cut that out. Same thing at the end of the meeting. And probably the most important part of that is going through the share and making sure that we're not breaking anonymity. Because once I do that and I post this to the next platform, which is called Podbean, that posts to our podcast. And that person's share goes from being inside the rooms of AA to being on a platform where, anybody can access it. So we want to make sure that our anonymity is safe and a priority. And that's a little bit of what I do. That's most of what I do. Actually, the podcast is really time consuming. However, it's gotten easier the more that I'm doing it. And before I hand it off, I just want to share a quick story with you guys that happened semi recently. And I guess to preface that, I should also share that I don't know if I mentioned, but I was the treasurer before I took over this tech commitment, which I loved. It was a 2-year-long commitment. I was the co-treasurer, and then you train under the current treasurer, and then you transition and so on. And one of my favorite parts about that commitment was it was in person. And, I passed the basket, I counted the money. People would come to me if they needed reimbursements or if we got more money, they would give it to me. And yeah, it was very involved. I got to interact with a lot of people in my home group in person. And I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that until I transitioned to my current position, which is very much behind the scenes. I I told you guys what I do, but I don't see the people that are using the things that I do, if that makes sense. Until something's broken, then people will let me know. But when I upload our podcast or when I fix the website or anything like that, like I'm assuming people are using it, but like I don't know. I'm sure they are. But anyways, this story, so it was about a month ago and it was around Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year's. And it was like 10:30. It was during the weeknight. I was watching a movie. We actually still have our Christmas tree up. Um, Fun fact. And I have our email account set up on my phone and I get notifications. And so I see this notification come through and it doesn't look like the ones that I normally get. This was from an individual who reached out and she had just lost her husband and she couldn't stop drinking and she needed help. And she gave her name and her phone number and that was it. And so I responded, pretty quickly and just said like, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you so much for reaching out. This is hard. It's scary. We don't do this alone. And I gave her my name and phone number. And then I gave her, we have this commitment, basically like a sponsorship coordinator, male and female. And so I included that person as well. And I gave them her contact info. And that was it. And I watched my phone for another hour before I went to bed and nothing happened. And so life went on. And I came to our meeting on Thursday and our sponsorship coordinator's name is Tanya. And so I talked to Tanya and I said, hey, did that woman ever reach out to you? And she said, yeah, she did. One important part about Tanya, she is a home group member, but she does not live locally. It's probably like an hour drive for her to come to our meeting without traffic, one way. So that woman reached out to her and I said, oh, how did that go? And she was like, well, she actually lives around the corner from me. She called me the next day and she's here tonight. And that was so cool. And on the last Sunday of the month, our meeting also celebrates birthdays. So we give out chips after the speaker. And this last Sunday, I got to see that woman come up and get her 30-day chip. And it was so cool, you guys. And it was like one of those moments, like I don't always see how technology can connect us in this, tech chair role, but it does, and I don't always need to see it to know that it's working, but to have that experience was just really cool. So I wanted to share that. Uh, that's it. I'm going to stop talking. I will pass it over to some of my home group members. In no particular order. Nick, you can go ahead and pick up. And then if you want to pass it to Chase after that, and Chase, you can pass it back to Danica and I. Thanks, guys.
Cool, thanks, Elaine. Hi, everyone. My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic, a home group member of the Love and Service, same as Elaine. I'm grateful someone else is running the website. I've done that once and I've taken it down, and I don't know how to fix it. So, I kind of because of that experience, I've developed this mindset that it feels like we maybe shouldn't have service commitments that the majority of the group can't fulfill. But that's kind of where I personally run into this edge of we're trying to balance it with technology and meet newcomers where they are. Um, and that's been a part of my humbling experience that I'll talk a bit about. So our Sunday meeting has been a hybrid meeting since before COVID. Um, we started doing audio for Zoom in about 2018, and I remember I used like a phone, and we had a headset coming out of our audio system, and I just cupped the phone in the audio system. It was super wonky, so many areas of like quality degradation before the people online that could actually hear it. There was one point where a home group member decided to say, well, let's just put a camera up and see what happens. And the home group at our next business meeting, we're not happy. They're like, AA is anonymous. You can't put videos online. You just can't do that. You can't have A online. It'll never happen. So, I don't know if anyone recalls what happened in 2020, but I think that's definitely a silver lining. It changed the landscape of AA and how we get to meet and connect. Um, and because we already had a Zoom account, we were able to really hit the ground with our feet running. And then when we came back, we were officially like a video on Sunday hybrid meeting, and it was really neat. Um, One of the biggest challenges I think we have is actually making the people online feel like they're a part of the meeting. And we probably still really don't do a great job with that. It's hard. We allow people to unmute themselves at times if they're a newcomer, if they're celebrating a sobriety birthday, and usually at the end, someone online says the promises. Our Sunday meeting is just a speaker meeting, so there usually isn't much audience or member participation anyway. But there's a lot of technical challenges for running that because we have an auditorium that we're in. We aren't allowed to use the sound system of the facility, so we set up our own speakers. We have our own soundboard. We have a camera on stage, and we have three laptops. So there's a really big tech hurdle just for setting up Sunday. We've got audio going into the soundboard. We've got audio coming out of the soundboard and connecting with the laptop. So there's a lot of kind of technical challenges there, and we ironed that out over several years, and it worked really well. And someone put last year in our inventory suggestions, because we do a group inventory every year, somebody said, "Hey, we're a hybrid home group. Why isn't our Thursday meeting also hybrid?" Uh, and that knucklehead that put that in the box was me. Um, I I have learned to love and hate that suggestion because Thursday has been more of a technical challenge. We had all the tech we needed, so there actually wasn't a financial hurdle. We didn't need to buy new cameras. We didn't need any laptops. So we had everything we needed. But our Thursday meeting does something weird that I haven't really been to other meetings that do this. We all meet in one room, do the steps, traditions, promises. So we read the announcements, and then we split off into four separate rooms. So that's a technical challenge, and we decided we would just start with one meeting. So that's where we're at right now. We have a newcomer meeting, which honestly might never go hybrid. I think maybe it's more appropriate for a newcomer meeting to not have a camera in your face. So uh, we also have a Steps Traditions concept meeting, a Big Book meeting. Oh, I meant to start a timer. I think I have an hour to talk, is what I was told. No, I'll keep it under 8 to 10 minutes, I was told. So I'll keep it in that range. Um, and we have a introduction to meditation meeting. That probably also wouldn't be so great in a hybrid format, but who knows what the group conscience will say. So we decided Steps Traditions Concepts would be a really great meeting to go hybrid because sometimes it's hard to find a local speaker who is well versed in the concepts. I think we've even had people from New York. Actually, someone came and shared, we didn't even realize they were a special worker. So it was really neat to like all of a sudden I'm hearing about the concepts from someone that's working at GSO. So that was super neat. So kudos to tech for allowing that to be an option. But the Sunday meeting didn't map so well into the Thursday meeting because we're only in that first room for 10, 15 minutes. So setting up speakers, setting up a soundboard, bringing all that equipment from the auditorium into this whole other room where we were in, it wasn't exactly feasible, especially because a lot of the participation would then happen in a whole other room. So we did an ad hoc committee and we opted to not throw all that sound equipment in the room. That might change. Um, right now, one of our biggest challenges is when someone wants to announce that they're a newcomer or they're celebrating a birthday, like how do we hear them? We're working on adding kind of some speakers in there or just like cranking the laptop volume up. So the setup's a little different, but that is kind of the technical challenge that I don't know the best solution. And it works well enough. They can't really hear the audience that well, but we have the same issue on Sunday. Like when someone in the back of room announces their sobriety birthday, no one online can really hear that well unless the person at the front of the room mentions their name. And I should add, we do sign language once a month on the last Sunday generally. And I didn't even realize that that was an issue until the sign language interpreter is like, I can't hear. So I'm in the room and I didn't even realize like, oh, they can't hear. So usually the secretary will try to repeat those things. So those are some of the things we try to be cognizant. Like, how do we make the people online feel like we're there? On Sundays, one of the three laptops we set up will actually just its only purpose is to give an in-room view. It's in the back of the room so people can kind of get a sense of like, here's how many people are here. Here's what you're a part of. So that's kind of that idea. The third laptop is an accessibility. So people that maybe don't want to sit in the auditorium can sit out. There's a few couches in the room before the auditorium. I've I've actually met a member and they said he wasn't physically able to sit in our seats. It's actually, it used to be a movie theater, and now it's been repurposed into a church. So the seats are very well confined. So that's a big accessibility thing. And sometimes people have kids, so they can sit out there. So that's Sunday. So on Thursday, we will we take most of the equipment. What's changed a bit on Thursday to Sunday is on Sunday, we actually have someone in front of the secretary who's kind of the Zoom eyes and ears. So someone is in front of them and letting them know like, oh, there's hands raised because they can't see. There's no monitor in front of them. We're projecting who's online on a screen behind them. So we set up a projector. That's another like technical expertise of setting up the projector. And on Thursdays, there's not quite as much room. We're using our laptops for everything. So what we're doing is there's actually a laptop in front of the secretary on Thursdays. So they're actually able to, just like this, they can see people online. So they get all those visual cues, which adds some additional strain on their job because now they're also getting, I don't know if you've ever spoken in front of a group of people, but you suddenly forget what you're doing. Your hands are all over the place for no reason. So it's an additional technical challenge or labor for the secretary because now they don't get that additional help and they're seeing all this feedback on the screen. But it allowed us to have the camera we would normally use in the second room that it's going to be needed in. So we've got a whole other setup in that room where we've got a TV in a room, we've got the laptop ready and a camera. So the moment we're done with announcements and collecting seventh traditions, we we split into four separate meetings, and that's a bit of a scramble for the person running the tech, because now they need to go shut down the projector in the first room. They need to turn off the laptop, maybe say, "Hey, I'll see you in the other room in a sec," because not everyone like realizes what's going on, especially anyone at the meeting in person for the first time. Like usually people are like kind of tuned out. You're like, "Yeah, I've heard all this." And then all of a sudden everyone's getting up and leaving the room and someone's like, "What is happening?" So it's a mildly chaotic moment where we're shutting that down and setting up in the other room and then running into the other room, unmuting so people can hear. I've left it unmuted in that room, and what I found out later is sometimes people will go in there and take a phone call, not realizing that everyone on Zoom is hearing them. So we leave that room pre-muted. I was thinking I was saving myself a step, but you can't really account for all the technical nuanced issues that will happen. So we run into that room, we unmute it, and then we've got the 45 minutes where we go over steps, traditions, or concepts, whatever the chosen topic is that week. And then we actually have online and in-person and participation. So I try my best to get the seats and the TV as close together, but still allow the camera to kind of try to catch everyone. You can't necessarily do that. But that has actually created a pretty good hybrid environment. The TV is very large. It's in everyone's face, and we can see people when they're raising their hands, and then we can unmute them. I'm surprised you guys let me unmute myself here. That's always a big issue we have where people are unmuting themselves. So we threw the towel in and said, when the meeting starts, you can't unmute yourself. You got to ask yourself. You got to ask to unmute. So that's one of the big things we had. One of the other big unexpected challenges that we had on Sundays, we had almost no Zoom bombers anymore. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Zoom bombers. Um, I always thought it was maybe just younger people that didn't have much better to do. I've seen people who are older come in and Zoom bomb, which I was surprised. I thought that was a young man's game, so anyone can participate in Zoom bombing if you so choose. Um, but what was wild is we weren't even posting our link anywhere. Only within our group. We were using the same link on Sundays and Thursdays, so the link was always accessible. Maybe people just have more free time on Thursdays at 7 p.m. instead of Sundays at 6 p.m. But we suddenly got inundated with Zoom bombers in ways that I just hadn't anticipated because we hadn't even really let people know. I have a few theories on that, how that happened, but I won't get into that. But I actually came across a very, very useful document that, I can share in chat or share with the leaders of this meeting, let you guys disseminate it if you want. But somebody came up with Zoom Security Guide, and I can't recommend that enough. You all are on Zoom, so you might know about this. That person might even be in this room. I don't know. Oh, someone's looking at it now, other than me. So maybe someone in here is aware of that document. So super useful. It was just updated this month, actually. I would say the biggest thing that was really helpful was not letting people have video virtual backgrounds. Oh, I think I'm about at time now. So not having video virtual backgrounds. Oh, I can keep going. Is that what you're saying, Brian? Stretch it out? Okay. I could just keep talking. Um, so that was super helpful, locking that feature down. Another big feature for us was only allowing people who were authenticated users was a big thing. Now, this was a tough decision to make because I ran Zoom at an area assembly once, and we had a breakout room. One room was getting inundated with Zoom bombers, so we locked it down. So you had to be an authenticated user. And so some people would join the other room and say, "Hey, I can't get into the other. Like, I don't have a Zoom account. I don't know how to do that." So it is a technical hurdle. Um, I think now a lot of people are more familiar with doing that, but that was a decision that I had to make was, is it worth knowing that maybe a few people won't be able to hear this meeting tonight, versus other people arguably being like sexually assaulted. So that was kind of the decision we made is, we're showing up an hour before getting the set. I feel like we deserve to feel safe. So but it caused some additional problems because we use three laptops. And the moment one person signs in, it'll pull the other person out. So you have to log into Zoom in a very specific way and launch the meeting in a certain way, unless we want to make three Zoom accounts. So maybe we'll do that. So that caused a ripple effect that affects Sunday. All of a sudden, Sunday setting up, they're like, now I need an email and password to sign in. So it had caused unexpected ripple effect and additional technical hurdles. We did our best to try to set it in a way that it was as low tech as possible. I want this to be as easy as possible to hand off because I think that's the biggest challenge is like I can do it. And I think I'll end with this. This was the biggest spiritual thing journey for me to go on is I'm just in general under the impression that only I can do things. And it has been very humbling to be able to take a step back and let other people do it. And it's really hard for me. So that's the character defect that AA allows me to work on is if I see things or I can just step back and it turns out like I haven't been involved in the Thursday running the Zoom meeting in the last like couple months and the world hasn't burned down. So that it's really good to know. It's set up in a way that people can do it and people can figure it out. So don't sell yourself short. It's easier than you think to do it and to let it go. So I think that's about all I got.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. I didn't realize you were the one that submitted that Thursday thing, but I've attended that meeting when I've been sick or traveling and can't make it. So I love it. I don't do anything to facilitate it. I just attend, but I think it's great. All right, Chase, you're next. Chase is going to talk to us about communications and how we use technology in our home group.
All right. Is there any delay?
Little bit of echo. It looks like, sounds like we were getting.
What about now?
Still a little echo, but tolerable.
You might have to disconnect the audio on your phone because Zoom will only let you turn down the volume to like 10% for your phone device.
Okay. All right, thanks.
That's better.
Very nice. All right, well, I'm Chase and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 1, 2017. Great presentation, Nick and Elaine. Thank you for the invite And all those who have put this workshop together, I want to thank you all for your service. And I just want to thank the God of the universe for this opportunity to be of service at this capacity. I have a slide deck for you all today. And I'm gonna start that in this moment. All right, so my home group is 11 Service Group, and we're going to talk about the comms and where tech and spirituality mix. Now, if anyone by the end of my presentation can tell me exactly where that location is here in the California, Northern California area, please share so at the end of my presentation. The group's logistics, as mentioned earlier, we have 127 home group members. The group meets in a converted movie theater. Our meeting days are from Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. There's 4 breakouts, as mentioned earlier. We have a newcomer, a big book study, steps, traditions, concepts, which is now hybrid. Thanks to Nick. I didn't know that. That's a bit of group history that was entertaining for me to hear today. Thank you for sharing that. And we have introduction to meditation. On Sundays, it's also hybrid from 6 to 7 p.m. And it is a speaker meeting, and we provide ASL on either the fourth or the last Sunday of the month. Sobriety birthday and chip nights are held on the fourth Sunday. I just recently celebrated 9 years, and I got my chip this past Sunday. We have designer chips. I don't know about you, but this is definitely a group that that has the fellowship that I crave. I'm really grateful to be a part of it. The 11 Service Group objectives, number 14 and 3. And the resource for this, if you all want to see what our group's objectives are, is the 11servicegroup.org. And you'll see that there's a tab in the menu that says history. And you'll see a bit about the history of the group and how there was this core group, I would say, of members who spearheaded this group and the making of the group that discussed what their objectives are. What is their ideal home group? What would it look like? So they posed great questions that led to a total of 15 objectives. And I picked 2 today because they really go along the lines of how our group today carries them out. Objective 14 states that a communications instrument will be developed to assure that members are in good communication about all group activities and actions. Objective 3 states our group will foster a sense of belonging and provide an environment that is safe and supportive. Now, I did serve as the group's communications chair. My tenure with that commitment was October 2024 to October 2025. Excuse me. I'm now currently the Thursday night secretary for the Steps, Traditions, and Concepts meeting. In light of our primary purpose, these tools do not define us. Our primary purpose does. These communication pathways exist for one reason only, and that is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Well, why does communication matter? Well, excuse me, the 11th Service Group blends timeless spiritual principles. Now, I say timeless because as I imagine it, if we were to all go out of existence today, the spiritual principles will still stand. They're still there. right? They're there. They're going nowhere, right? These principles are absolutely are spiritual, and which is why I put that word timeless there. And with the modern communication tools to stay connected, informed, and to be of service. Today's storyboard, which is this slide deck that I have with you all today, will outline the three core platforms that help the group share information with clarity, accessibility, and anonymity. Different paths meeting for one person purpose. With a fairly large group like the Love and Service Group, requires a great responsibility in assuring the principle of inclusion is implemented. And that's in light of Tradition 3. With many voices requires pathways for others to be heard, creating spaces that are safe and built on Trust. Many tools, one message. So here are the three communication tools that I was able to get very familiar and acquainted with while being the communications chair for the Love and Service Group. That is, you see Slack, Canva, and Expert Texting. This here is anyone familiar with Slack. This is a screenshot of what our channels are for our group on the Slack platform. You'll see that within these channels, there's one workspace with different channels. And some of these channels are inclusive to all those who are home group members and all those who have opted in to use Slack as a form of communicating along with the group. You'll also see other channels that really are pertinent to those whose commitment is impacted with. So for example, you see the Thursday STC. That Thursday Steps Traditions Concepts meeting also has a sub tech team. I'll call it sub tech team because it's really a spring off of the tech team for the Sunday meeting. But they're also of assistance and of service to the Thursday now hybrid meeting. Tools integrated in service. Our group objectives are implemented by way of how we're able to use communication tools and how they mix with spirituality as well. And the 12 traditions of AA applied, integrated with these communication tools with the sole purpose to reach the alcoholic requires a great responsibility. Now, all of you who have cell phones, please, I'll leave this screen excuse me, on so that you all can go ahead and scan that QR code. We have our LNS newsletter archives. Now that QR is going to take you to all the newsletters that I published within my tenure as the communications chair. You'll see on there that it has some information about the Sunday's meeting, how to access it online, as well as when the ASL interpretation is had. I'll give it some more time for anyone that's scanning the QR. Now, one thing about the traditions is what I've learned, and I'm sure I've heard and adopted this within other shares throughout Alcoholics Anonymous, because essentially everything that I know, someone has passed it on to me, right? And now I have this beautiful opportunity to pass it forward. And the traditions essentially is not me to protect myself from you, right? The traditions is essentially to protect you from me. One thing that I know that with these guiding principles, I'm able to carry out our primary purpose and really be very aware and conscientious of anything that's going to divert me from my primary spiritual aim. And when I know that the old tradition 6, the original one, it stated primary spiritual aim. But what's amazing about that, what my experience has been with that aim is a relationship with a higher power. And anything that's going to divert me from that relationship will literally lead me to harming you, essentially. So anything like power, prestige, money, anything like that, the traditions allows me to be very conscious of my behavior and how I interact with you. And in this case, I have a home group, which is where I get to learn these things. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of group consciences being gathered. There's a lot of differences of opinions. There's a lot of, no doubt, maybe clap back on different ideas. But the beautiful thing about that is what keeps me completely focused is that primary purpose. And with these traditions, it allows me to be able to communicate very effectively with you all. So I've learned how to effectively communicate in a loving and healthy way. And this is a commitment that helped me tremendously for that. Expert texting. Now, I didn't say this, but the newsletter, we use Canva. I use Canva to be able to create that PDF and that slide deck of that newsletter. And what's great about the newsletter is that um, it's publications from other home group members that are able to post things. I'm able to gather things to put into that newsletter. It's not just Chase's newsletter, right? It's just, I'm not the headliner. I'm not the one putting information in the headline. I'm the steward of it. I'm the one that's gathering your experiences, strength, and hope in your reports, and I'm putting it in that newsletter to share broadly with the members of the group. Now, expert texting is the third and final communication tool that we use as a group in that communications role. And expert texting is a company, excuse me, about 7 years, that has about 7 years of experience with SMS marketing at a very low cost to their customers. To the right of that, you'll see there's a screenshot of what message goes out. This message goes out on the second Thursday of every month, which is the day of the publication of the newsletter. This message goes out. A link is created in expert texting, and it's basically specific to expert texting. So once I publish it and I shorten the link, I'm able to then put it within that text thread with so many characters. The more characters you use, the more clouds you would have to use, and that means the more cost it is. So I try to keep it short. I keep it within 50 letters, maybe 60 to 75 characters. And at any time, any member that have opted in to being a home group member, when they receive this text, they're able to opt out. Now, once they opt out, what happens is they're removed from the actual, I would say, contact list. So there's been times where folks have hit opt out and they're like, oh, I'm not getting the newsletters. And I say, well, no problem. I'll be happy to add you back onto that distribution list. And with that, I believe that's the end of my slide. And I will stop the screen share and I will now turn it back over to whoever is leading. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase. I opted out of the newsletter, so can you add me back in, please? All right. That was a great presentation. Thank you for putting that together. And Nick and Chase, thank you guys for making time to join me on this meeting, on this workspace. And my last speaker for tonight is sitting right next to me because we live together. And I'll pass it over to her and stop talking. This is Danica. She's going to talk about a few things. She's going to talk about our podcast and some other cool things that we're doing to carry the message with tech.
Cool. Thanks, Lloyd. Hi, I'm Danica. I'm an alcoholic. Hello. Thank you guys so much for having us. This is so cool. So I got sober in September 6th of 2020. So where I live, that was the Zoom only time. They call me a Zoom baby. So I was like not only a technology native in the outside world, but I was a technology native in the AA world. Like it was all that I knew. There were no open meetings, in-person meetings, I should say, where I lived at the time when I got sober. And I was so lucky that Love and Service was the first place that I landed. My sponsor recommended that as a meeting that I go to, and I joined on Zoom, and I had the exact same experience that I hear people share about when they got sober, whether that was in the early 2000s or the 90s or the 80s. Like I came in, I was greeted, I was welcomed. There was fellowshipping before and after. I was invited to take a commitment. There were commitments available to me that didn't have any sobriety requirement. And I owe that to a group that was willing to adopt technology before they felt ready. I mean, we were hybrid, as Nick talked about, before the pandemic. So that was great. But everything else, I think, required so much legwork and scrambling in order for them to continue carrying the message the way that they did and keep these Zoom rooms open to people like me that needed this when the rest of the world was shut down. So I thank you guys for continuing and carrying that torch and being a source of knowledge for this fellowship. Like I know I absolutely indirectly benefited from exactly what you guys are doing today. So I'm very grateful for and passionate for technology in Alcoholics Anonymous. And to be in such a, as you heard tonight, or hopefully what you heard tonight, an important part of our group is accessibility. And so that has been the main purpose that has driven our expansion within our adoption of technology. When we went hybrid before COVID, it was because we had some home group members that couldn't make it to meetings. And it was, how do we make this message accessible to people that might not be able to come into meetings? And that has continued to drive our progress in technology and have all of us clumsily learning to use these new tools. I served as, I think my first year of sobriety, I served as the co-tech chair in our meeting. And that was, I didn't really have any responsibilities. I just had a title. And my chair managed the website. He managed our Google Drive. We have a lot of, I don't know if anybody said this, we have like 70 commitments at our home group, which is a lot. And they stay filled. It's definitely grown from the time that I've joined the group. We had all the commitment descriptions in our Google Drive. We had old audio recordings in the Google Drive. We had all kinds of other stuff like minutes, things that I didn't know about. So he managed all of that and I didn't have anything to do. So he was like, well, we have all of these audio recordings that before COVID, we were burning onto CDs and selling them. And that's obviously not happening. So why don't you look into building a web store where we can sell the digital recordings? And so I did that. I used our, we have WordPress. I found a plugin. I started building the web page and I said, how much should we list these audio recordings for? And he's like, I don't know. We were selling the CDs for this much. Anyway, we were discussing that. I was coming from a place of, well, I've sat in on these business meetings and we're always talking about money. So like, we should probably charge a little bit more for these audio recordings and try to make up, make up for those expenses that we're always trying to cover with our seventh tradition. All that is to say, I was coming from a place of financial fear. And I was like, I think we should charge, I was like, maybe $5. And he said $3, whatever it was. So before we could proceed, he's like, really, this is something we need to bring to the group. So we brought it to the group at the business meeting. He presented, thank God. I was still terrified to speak at a group level, let alone at a business meeting. And what I thought would be like a quick little discussion and a vote turned into a year-long discussion around, is the website the best place to share these recordings? Like, what about anonymity? Should we be charging? Should we not be charging? Should we not even be providing these on the internet at all? Like, it's one thing to have a CD of it, right? It can't leave it. It's private. It's completely private. It's another thing when it's on the internet, even if it's shared by email. And after a year discussion, I had stepped in as tech chair by the time we were wrapping that discussion up, with the, being guided by these 36 principles, the steps, the traditions, and the concepts. The group decided that the best thing to do would be a free podcast. Our primary purpose is to share the message to alcoholics who still suffer. It's not to cover our expenses. We are poor by nature, and there's a purpose for that. It requires a lot of faith. And so we're going to act out of our primary purpose instead out of fear. And how do we make this the easiest to use and most accessible? We're going to find some podcasting platform. So I was tasked with researching that. And I was already feeling like, oh my God, this job is so big. I have so many responsibilities. There's so many things I'm in charge of. Like, I really want to make this as easy to turn over as I can. And it was actually pretty easy to find a platform that worked. Like, it's called Podbean. It's really simple, easy to use. We wanted to make sure that we could get our podcast up on many platforms. Like, I personally use my Apple Podcasts. I know a lot of people use Spotify, Google Podcasts. There's all kinds of stuff. So we wanted to make sure that we could make it available on those platforms. And Podbean has that ability built into it really easily. So the way that we had been previously storing all of our audio recordings of our speakers was in our Google Drive. And as the co-tech chair and then tech chair, I was manning our email, and occasionally I would get a request for one of the audio recordings. And I think I'm like jumping around a little bit here. But I think when I was doing that, I might get one request every like 3 months for an audio recording. I'll share some statistic from our podcast in a little bit. Audio recordings. Oh, that's right. Storage. A cool part of Podbean is that we can now host all of our audio recordings through that application. It's $12 a month. We pay for it annually, and we don't have to pay for additional storage on like a Google Drive or on Zoom or anything like that. It's all included in that, which is really cool. So once we decided we were going to do that, and I presented, like, I think this is the best platform for us, then we had to get into anonymity. How are we going to handle that? And our group, I think we had an ad hoc that formed to decide how we're going to handle that. And we decided no last names, period. It doesn't matter if they're dead or living. It doesn't matter if it's Bill W. If it's a last name of an alcoholic, we're going to censor it. So then I had to figure out how to do that. And at the time, I still listen to the AA Grapevine podcast, and I happened to be lucky enough to listen to an episode where they actually had to bleep something out, which it doesn't happen super often. And so I thought, why don't I just email them and find out how they do it? Because I had been having a really hard time finding like free editing software to edit out last names when like anonymity is inevitably going to be broken during, those podium shares. And I had a really hard time. I found something that was like really tedious. I had to do like multiple uploads and it was taking forever. It wasn't reliable. So I emailed the Grapevine podcast, and Don, the guy who, I don't know if you guys, I see some heads nodding. He's one of the hosts there. Like, he emailed me back and was like, I use this service. It's free. You just download this software. He gave me just step-by-step instructions. There were like 3 instructions. It was really simple. And I was up and running from there. It's called Audacity. It was a really easy way to change the audio format so that it's not an MP4 or MV4 or something. It's the MP3 format that we need to upload to the podcast. I could edit out last names, and it was free. So that was really cool. We got the podcast up and running. And then during my time as tech chair, another accessibility focused movement, we decided to do ASL interpretation once a month. And a few months into that, somebody had the idea of posting our ASL videos to a YouTube channel. And that's because they'd seen some other groups do that. I think the one that was mentioned, they're called Foxhall Chapter 7. They meet in Minnesota. You can still see their ASL recordings. So again, I didn't know how to make that happen. Our ASL interpreter is not an alcoholic, so we're able to show her video. We had to get her permission. And then it was like 3 or 4 months of trial and error trying to figure out, how do we record the audio separate? How do we only record the ASL video? And then how do we ensure that the people in the room at the church are getting the proper view of things and it's not affecting what we're recording? So again, I reached out to another group that I knew was successfully doing it. It was actually the Foxhall chapter, Chapter 7. I got that name from another home group member that was like, hey, they're doing this. And I asked them how they did it. We finally figured out how to do that, nailed it down, and started uploading those ASL videos to our YouTube channel. So we have our podcast available on YouTube. It's audio only. We have it available on Spotify, on Apple's podcasts. If you don't use any of those things, you can access it from our website. You can access it from Podbean. I think, is it like Google? There's a Google podcast or Amazon podcast. One of them just stopped being a podcasting platform. I don't know which one. I apologize. But so those are all of the platforms that you can stream from, or the ways that you can stream. And in we start 2023, we started towards the end of 2023, and we're now 2026. So in that time, we have had almost 15,000 downloads total. We have 7.6 thousand listeners. We have over 53 countries where people listen to our podcasts all over the world. And when I compare that to the traffic that we got when people were asking for audio recordings, when they were just hidden away in the Google Drive, it is astonishing. There are people all over the world that are listening to this podcast, really just listening to our speakers. And it's such a cool way to share the message, to listen back, and to invite other people to listen to this message from your home group. I listen to it all the time. I'll re-listen to speakers. And I'm so glad that we did it. I'm so glad I learned how to do it. And I'm so glad that I'm part of a group that we're all willing, for the most part, to learn, to stumble through things, to hold somebody's hand through things, to have our hand held through things, to mess up, to try to make it right. We wouldn't have all of these tools if we weren't willing to do that. And if we didn't have communities like this to learn from each other and to grow. It's been such an important tool, just technology, period. Has been such an important tool for me to engage with Alcoholics Anonymous, to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I feel privileged and obligated to continue to find new ways to use this technology thing to carry the message. That is all. Thank you, guys.
I'll slide back in here. Thank you, Danica. I told you guys, they know way more than I do. So I'm grateful, Nick, Danica, Chase, thank you guys for showing up and being a part of this. And with that, I will turn it back over. Brian or April, do we open it up for sharing now or questions? Yeah.
Yes, let's go ahead and open up for questions and sharing. Raise your hand. I think if you raise your hand close to the camera, it'll automatically, I think, do that thing. So I'm not sure. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, there's lots of good stuff here. Let me just say, Elaine, I love the 12-step story. I think, when we look at the pyramid, the groups are responsible. And to have that happen for your group, especially with all this effort to make it accessible, I think is really important. Sometimes we get the technology and we don't know how it gets transferred over. And when it's so close and your group is actually doing that work with technology that makes it accessible, that's the purpose. That is the most important thing. I think, I try to tell home groups, you can get a Google phone number, you can get a Google email, you don't have to be so tech wise, right? Even for the small groups in rural areas, they have a way to do that 12-step call. Any questions? Patrick?
Well, I don't know if I have a question. Just I do the same thing. I record a monthly meeting at our club here, and use Audacity. Just use a little hand recorder. Use Audacity to edit it, which works great. I love that app. And then for free, someone brought up in one of the group consciences, why don't you put it on YouTube? And I'm like, wow, that's free. And so, yeah, we've been putting it on YouTube for 3 years, and it's been a wonderful thing to get. And when we have people visiting, they're the ones that get the most hits. But other than that, yeah. Anyway, just more comments than that. It was free using YouTube with just a picture, I guess. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Zach?
My name is Zach and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Zach.
This is really cool. This is my first time being this. I don't know how long you guys have been doing it, but listening to everybody who shared tonight, it was so cool to hear the different ways that technology is being used. And it's always at odds with the traditions. I just remember like hours long discussions within like YPOC committees on how to properly use technology. And every group's interpretation is different. That's the beautiful thing about group conscience. Now, listening to Nick talk about the challenges, it always I don't know, it's like our Area 48 is as an area is fully hybrid. In fact, we meet across a very large area, so oftentimes half of our attendance for our area meetings is on Zoom, and we actually have Zoom only members because they now live outside the district, but are still allowed to serve. And we run into challenges a lot with audio, which is kind of what I heard Nick talk a lot about. Audio on the digital side and audio on the analog side with like echoes and noise canceling and stuff. And I guess what I was getting at is like I feel the pain with a lot of the traditions talk, then also with like the technical difficulties side of it. And I work in IT, so it's easier for me to navigate some of these things. It's just if I wish there was some sort of like central resource available for, say, like a group like what's the group called, Love and Service, with they have 70 commitments, which leaves like a lot of service hours to do extra stuff. But say like a much smaller group is trying to break into hybrid, like because other people like Nick and me and our hybrid committee has already run into the technical difficulties. If only we could share the solutions to those difficulties somewhere where the next group doesn't have to navigate that, and like also share, not necessarily dictate what the traditions interpretations are, but what our group's perspectives were, to navigate those, so that way maybe the next group doesn't have to have a year-long conversation until they can get something technologically accessible out there to help carry the message. And there's a lot more to say, but I don't want to take up too much time. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Zach. Topher?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Topher. I'm an alcoholic, and I am a real person. We try to take my avatar off here. Thank you so much for the presentation. Sorry, was having to juggle a couple of different Zoom meetings. I had a local commitment here for a convention committee. So I really only caught the second half of this, but I'm so grateful to be back in these sessions. I remember when we were doing the monthly, and I know that there'll be a recording, so I'll be able to go back and catch everything from the start. And my local home group here, we're a hybrid group, and started during before the pandemic. But this reminds me of the good old days. I heard someone refer to the pandemic when we were all here in the Hollywood Squares. And the question I had, and I thought this might be the best place to bring it up, during the last NAATW workshop, I learned of this new group, AA in VR. And there's people there with the VR headsets, and I didn't know there was such a thing as virtual reality meetings. And I've become a regular member, and the group is, well, I say it's a group, it's really meetings at this point, but they're looking to become an actual group. And we've looked to AA World Services for guidance, to GSO, and my understanding is that there's 6 districts around the US that are online only districts. And I know someone here from Area 72, District 25. Anyways, the AA in VR has put together an ad hoc committee to explore possibly becoming an official group and being involved in general service. And I was looking to talk to some people in those virtual only groups, and we have some questions. So anyone from Area 72 and I think Area 27, if you have more information after the meeting, I'd love to get in contact with you. I'll leave my number in the chat. And thank you so much for the presentation, and good to see everyone tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Topher. Does anybody else have anything to share? All right. So let me get back to my script because I can't remember anything. I'd like to thank again our presenters, Love and Service,